Alright, so I wanted to go ahead and make another video here today. Um, just kind of on this revelation that I feel like I've kind of had um, as I've just been thinking on things recently from a very, very biblical, just worldview lens, trying to make sense of everything around us that is good, that is bad. Um, it's a very deep way of talking about it. It's so much more spiritual than it is physical. Um, and what I kind of wanted to do, starting as a preface, because this is going to be a light historical walkthrough. I'm trying to work on keeping my videos shorter. Um, and some of the information I don't know if I'm even fully allowed to go into, so I don't know if I ever will. Um, I don't know. We'll see about that because I am a nobody at the end of the day. So I mean, maybe like I'll be able to have something put together over the course of time that outlines it all, but that would be kind of kind of sketchy for what I'm going to explain later on. Um, so that said, I want to preface this by saying if you guys kind of want a historical overview of what I'm about to kind of go over, and somebody that has a very similar stance as I do, not on all things but on some things, check out Nick Fuentes' Rumble channel, specifically this video, The Plot to Undermine Criticism of Israel, because he does a very good job explaining why that is. And I'm going to touch on some of the same points, but also bring up others as well from a more like Bible-centric worldview, because although Nick's Christian, he doesn't often use the Bible, which I think is it's okay to an extent because I think he brings people in and then he allows them to go on their own journey um, to discover it on their own, similar to how I have. So, without further ado, basically, how Lucifer has manipulated the God's chosen to where we are now. Okay, so originally we had Adam and Eve. Lucifer went into the garden as a serpent, deceived them, and then when that happened, all the world just started getting messed up, right? Like a lot of sin was entered the world. It got to the point where God was like, "Look, none of this can go on any longer. It all needs to be wiped out. Like it needs to we need to really restart here." So he sent the flood, because he tried to wipe out quite literally everything that Lucifer had messed up. So after the flood, we kind of have this rebirth of humanity. You have Noah and his sons, and then his sons' wives, and everything like that. But again, after the flood, Lucifer persisted. We know this because um, even Goliath, I think they said, was a descendant of Nephilim, right? He was a descendant of the giants. So this means that there are bloodlines involved. This is going to be important for later. But what are some examples of Lucifer persisting? One, you had the book of Job, which some people, one second. All right, sorry about that. Just had a good conversation with a longtime friend. So yeah, I was at Job, and then so Solomon, right? So the way that Solomon eventually got, the way that Lucifer eventually got Solomon tied up was through all the different wives that he had. Um, maybe there was some kind of sexual sin going on there. I don't know. Um, Obviously, it's supposed to be between one man and one woman, but I know the world was different back then. Then Jesus, right? Jesus came, broke the chains. He was wandering for 40 days and 40 nights. And it didn't matter how much Satan tempted him, even with the kingdoms of the world, right? Jesus said no. And it's amazing because it's like I feel like all the different patriarchs that we've had throughout time, they're given those choices, right? Whether it's them directly talking with Satan, or whether it's, the spirit of Satan orchestrating ways to give people a choice of right and wrong. It's very interesting how this all works the same way over the course of time. This then brings me into Numbers 36. This was something I read last night, which is kind of the whole reason for this video today. So there are genealogies, right? Very much throughout like Exodus, Numbers, even Genesis, there's all these genealogies. These are really important, but not for what one might think. So God blessed Abraham, right? And that meant that he was going to be given, and his descendants, all this stuff, this inheritance, if we will. So in Numbers 36, it's specifically talking about the process of dispersing the inheritance of the female heirs of these households. So it's like when everything's kind of like loaded out, if there's a family that gets, there's no more males in that bloodline, it's with the women, and then the women marry out into other tribes or whatever. That's essentially the situation going on here. They're trying to figure out how to spread all that out like fairly. But there's this talk in the chapter about like it's our lot of inheritance, it's our this, it's our that, and then we're losing this lot as it's kind of transferred out here amongst the world, really. Which then brings me into this next thing, which is secret societies. Okay, so we live in this world where we have all these conspiracy theories. It's the Jesuits, it's the Catholic Church, it's the Illuminati, it's all these different things, right? Which at the time, especially in the Old Testament, you then have all these different religions because people are spreading out amongst the world to all the corners of the earth. And if they weren't fully dialed in with the proper belief in God, of actually understanding who God is, understanding who Satan is, understanding who the angels are, who the demons are, and all this stuff, then other things begin to creep in. The temptation, Satan will orchestrate things to where people will feel like they're making the right choice, even though they're not, because it's masked in this like self-serving kind of manner. So then you have, other religions, other traditions, different gods. It's like, okay, well, how did all these other gods come to be? They came to be through satanic deception, through Satan's angels going out, taking control of these different areas that are above mortal man from a spiritual sense, but ultimately below God, like variations of little gods, so to speak. So it's like, who's really right? Well, kind of everybody. Everybody has a piece of the truth. The difference is that our world relies so much on trying to have it only one way, which, and I'll say this as a preface, it's like the only one way truly is through Jesus Christ, and I'll get into that in a minute. But why are all these other religions and traditions kind of right? Well, it's because Satan, Lucifer, he makes small twists of the truth over time. All these like small twists where there is so much truth in what's kind of being said in all these other things, but there's these little twists that make people break away from God, make people break away from Jesus Christ. And it's very sad. But it's lots of lies disguised as truth. It's a bunch of lies that basically proliferate because this like one piece over here is kind of true. But then we're so quick to deny it, and when we're that quick to deny things, we're denying our brothers and sisters that are confused. We're not showing love. If anything, we're trying to show our like superiority in a way, which like from a spiritual standpoint, and that's wrong. And maybe I'll touch more on that later. So getting back to family ties. So with these genealogies, this is a people who have had considerable satanic temptations over the course of time. Satan has not relented once. And ultimately, it's all going to come to a head at the very end of time, and God is going to defeat him for all time. Because everything that Satan means for bad, God will use it to glorify good. People don't understand this concept because they think it has to just be like one specific way. They're not looking at the grand picture large enough, and it's very heavy on the soul to kind of understand something like that, because all I want to do is love those around me, help those around me. I want to humble myself. I just want to be used for the Lord. Like all the bad things that I've done, all the pain that I've caused in different ways that I might not even know about, all the bad degenerate stuff. Like I'm not that person anymore. I know it sounds weird because it's something that a lot of people, I don't think, potentially go through this early in life. But this kind of awakening of my soul, of recognizing how I'm supposed to live, why I'm supposed to live this way, where do I fit in all this, right? There's just a lot of peace that comes with that. But so family ties, these people, they track their bloodlines. They think it's important from a financial standpoint, and that's where I think Satan, intervenes quite a bit with these people throughout the course of time. Is he tries to deceive them with the riches of the world. You then have the Talmud, this Jewish superiority complex, this denial of Jesus. It's all ultimately a Luciferian manipulation. Because while these people are God's people, they're chosen. It's through the bloodlines. Like, that's why it's so freaking important to them. Here's the thing, though. Ultimately, we all stem from the same. It's not fair. Well, I won't say fair, because that's the wrong word. It's not right for them to be so obsessed with bloodlines. That is why, numerology, all the genealogies, like all this bloodline stuff, that's why it's all ultimately satanic, because that's trying to place power in the physical. It's trying to place power into the world, into finances, into basically not depending on God. You're basically taking everything that God had ever given you from a inheritance standpoint of like you being his chosen people, and you're abusing that. And that's why that concept is satanic. That's why that concept is wrong, because ultimately we're all God's chosen people. We just have to decide to live with him. These people are choosing the side of the devil. He's deceived them through their greed, through their humanity, and they don't realize it. So this leads me into the next point of, why aren't we allowed to talk about stuff like this? The amateur or the mainstream person would say, oh, well, free will. If everybody knew that God was real, then that wouldn't really quite be free will, now would it? That is the more popular stance. I offer something different. I say that makes no sense at all. And I say that because God quite literally sent his son, Jesus, on earth. He was the God man. And that was him literally saying, hey world, I am real. And when you think about it, what is ultimate free will? It is the ability to know right from wrong, the truth from the lie. And this is where Lucifer is actually extremely angry, and this is where I think our whole world has gotten this twisted. It's these deviations of the truth in part, but God is saying, look, I exist. I want people to genuinely be able to look me in the eye, spiritually, metaphorically, and tell me that you don't want to live in my presence. And God will take whatever answer, but he wants you to at least know. See, what happens is that Lucifer is so angry about Jesus and about what God is trying to achieve through his creation of humanity, that he goes through and he messes up every little thing. And it could be the smallest of things in all these different ideologies that we have. It could be the smallest thing. But it leads somebody away from God ultimately, even if they don't really recognize it. It does. And it's so sad because we have so many different ideologies, religions, traditions that we all think are good just because we've done them for so long. But when you look at each one and you run it all the way out through a thought experiment, out to the very, very edge to where there's nothing left, you realize that it's not 100% the truth. However, when you look at the Bible and you run every little possibility out, you find the truth. And the devil hates it. That's why I think God has fought so hard for us to, or has fought so hard to demonstrate his presence in this world, because he loves us. He wants us to choose him, of course, but he's also cool if we don't. He's sad, and living a life separate from Christ is hell, at the core. If you can't be surrounded by your Creator and just everlasting peace and love, the opposite of that, which is separation from God, would probably feel like hell. On top of that, the reason why it's more scary is all those fake gods, all those demonic spirits that are in this realm. I mean, for every, think about it this way. We think about the war in heaven, as explained in the Bible. Satan took a third of the angels with him, and then that means 2/3 of the angels remained in heaven. And then there's all of humanity that got started and replicated and all that, right? Can you guys imagine just how many angels, good and bad, because then you have fallen angels, right, that exist? It's probably an extremely large amount, not just a couple characters like Michael and Gabriel, right? There are way more other angels. There's way more demons than we even think to know. We live in an extremely, even though it's a physical world of which we live, it is very spiritual. But with all those deceptions, that I think is why that straight and narrow is so important. When you take the genealogies, right? Do you guys think it's some kind of coincidence that all the rich, powerful people that we see are Jewish, or at least claim Jewish by ethnicity? And then you can think of, okay, it's these bloodlines, and it's Satan deceiving them throughout generations on generations, doing the most evil stuff. When you think of all the sin that a lot of these big companies do and proliferate, whether by direct or indirect means, it really starts to make a lot of sense. Uh, this turns into almost like a synagogue of Satan conversation, where it reaches a point where Satan has quite literally deceived almost the whole entire world into, one, thinking he doesn't exist, but two, not even questioning him. Like if you question him, it's like you're ended. It's like, and that's why, why are we allowed to talk about, or why are we not allowed to talk about this stuff? Why is it that when people bring this stuff up, they typically end up not alive at certain points in the future? It's because Satan doesn't want the truth out. He doesn't want the truth out that Jesus did come and die for our sins, that God is greater than he, that God is greater than Satan and all of his other angels, and that he always will be. He doesn't want that truth out. So he will do anything and everything, even if it's making small concessions where people feel like that they've won, or that they feel like that they understand the truth, to satisfy their own egos. He'll let them do that. He'll take that very small, insignificant L if it means gaining a soul. And what is it? Is it that Satan wants to be worshipped or anything like that? Sure, he wants to, but he realizes that's never even going to happen. He understands that all he can do is take away from God. That's his end game. His end game is, how many souls can I take away from God, that way I can make God sad, like infinitely sad. Like he's basically attacking God's heart, or at least attempting to. A way of explaining this, right, is the classic villain arc. To be more specific, 2002 Spider-Man Green Goblin, and maybe it's in 2004 too, but it's basically this idea that Green Goblin had of, if you really want to get to the hero, you attack his heart. So what did Green Goblin do? He attacked Aunt May, sent her to the hospital, right, to get at Spider-Man. So, and that's like your two opposing, like, good versus evil, right? And then you have us, where Satan is constantly trying to attack us, constantly trying to get us away from the truth of Jesus Christ and God, as a way of hurting God. And the saddest part is that people think way too much that, kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. People think that when God, I'm using quotes here because it's not really, when people think that God gives them this or gives them that, and then you look at the way that they live their life and how they're not actually living with God. Very interesting, right? Because if God had given them this, then they would still be living with God and walking with God in their everyday life, but they aren't. So does that good stuff come from God, or does it come from Satan as a deviation and distraction of the truth? Because sometimes God will give us over to the desires of our hearts, ultimately because he wants us to choose to come back to him. So he doesn't force us, right? But Satan will take that liberty that he has, given that he's the ruler of this world, that is ultimately finite and will ultimately be destroyed someday. But he thinks he can just, if he just keeps trying to get people away, that they're not gonna see what he's doing. And it's crazy, because it's like, at that point it's delusions of grandeur. Like, the truth will always prevail, but Satan, his whole entire existence has been, at least since being kicked out of heaven and everything like that, has been trying to confuse people, trying to make people feel like that they're making the choices even though they're not. The choices are being made for them, and not in a good way. Um, it's sad, but again, God's grace is sufficient. God literally demonstrated his love by having Jesus come down and die for our sins so that we could be with him. We didn't have to worry about the official bloodline of this or the official bloodline of that, or this financial thing and that financial thing and this thing and that thing. It's like, no, that's all taking your eyes off of God. All of it. Anything that's not focused with living and walking with God is not right. Now, this isn't to say that we should all just stop what we're doing and just think of God all the time. There's a balance, and I understand that even in my own personal life right now, I'm a bit hyper-fixated on it. I think there's worse things to be hyper-fixated on than this. But now that I'm focused on the things not of this world, I just have a lot more peace. Whereas I feel like when we focus too much on the world, money in our bank or having this thing or that thing, that's where this temptation of being unsatisfied creeps in, and that leads people away. Whereas you can still walk with God daily and do the tasks of which that he set before you. It's not like Abraham, for example, was just like this guy that talked back and forth with God and like led these people. It's like, no, he had like real world responsibilities. I think we give ourselves way too much credit with the world that we have around us, that we think everybody back then and the way that they operated in it, we think that that's just like way too insignificant. That's like nothing, that it's just like nomadic farmers with no technology, no this, like no responsibilities, just really unorganized, right? When actually, arguably, we're very unorganized today. We're so caught up in the day-to-day stuff that we're not even focused on God above us, which is a great deception in and of itself, is where we're so focused on doing stuff and being a slave to the world around us that we can't even stop to recognize that, no, we're not slaves. We're free. We're spiritually free. We're not bound by the chains of sin and all the bad things that have been created, because Satan has used people to create a lot of bad things, and he's used it through the Jews, because these bloodlines that these elitist groups have tracked back, like they've all kept this like money like really super close, and that's why they've kind of always kind of ruled the world in some capacity. They go from nation to nation just kind of squeezing them dry, but they do that through the power of Lucifer, and they do that because, one, it really hurts God. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it pains God greatly to see it. We've seen God's emotion in the Old Testament. We've seen his emotion in the New Testament. And if people would just understand and recognize that, take all ego out of it, and just look at the world in front of you and why, I think we would live so much happier lives. But instead, we allow ourselves to not focus on God, to just not focus on, it's such a deep concept. because everything in our brains at a human level thinks survival, we need this, we need that, or we have greed, or like we want this material thing, we want that. I feel like I'm kind of going in circles now, but we think that we need all those things, but we don't. So instead, again, focus on the Bible, focus on God above. Try to talk with him, ask him. He says, knock and the door shall be open. If we think of those things, then we don't have to worry about the world around us per se, because we're just going to live within his will, and everything is going to work out exactly the way it's supposed to. The minute we try to step outside of that is typically when Satan rips us by the arm and we lose ourselves a little bit. But I guess with all that said, hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully it doesn't get taken down. I don't see any reason why. Ultimately, I'm a nobody. But it's very interesting. It's thought-provoking. I'm going to keep making videos like this. Eventually, I'm going to switch over channels and stuff. I'm still thinking of name ideas, topic ideas, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below.